All right. Good day and welcome to Outstanding Accounts. This is the new podcast from the Commercial Law League of America. The CLLA has been around since 1895, and this is our new venture into the world of podcasts. My name is Richard Payne. I'm currently the president of the CLLA, and I'm very happy today to be joined by Robert Ashe. Robert is a longtime member of the CLLA and has held a succession of leadership positions within the league. He works in the field of commercial collections for commercial division of Allen Maxwell and Silver at Radius Global Solutions. So welcome, Robert.
Thank you for having me.
No problem at all. So I thought we'd get underway today by just discussing, you're in collections. You've been in collections for quite some time, but how did you find your way here? How did you end up doing commercial collections?
Well, you know, I wanted to be a plumber.
Really?
Yes, back in the mid 80s or so, my family had a plumbing and heating business, and some people find that they can work with their family and maintain one, and others not so much. And unfortunately, I fell into that category. At the same time, a family friend was starting a consumer collection agency, and he was after me for the longest time. You got to come work here. You got to do this. You'll be great at it. You could make some money. But, who wanted to collect bills for a living? So I kind of bounced around for a few jobs. And then in the early 90s, I needed a job. So I called up the family friend and said, "Hey, you still hiring?" And he said, "Yes, we are. We're always looking for good people and collectors." And I took the job doing consumer collections. And not even knowing that commercial existed, which is kind of silly when you think about it, because business is all businesses as well. But at the same time, it worked out. I was put, so to speak, amongst some of the top producers in that company, so I got to learn from them. And kind of did that for a few years and also bounced around at a few other consumer-type agencies. And then the job at AMS came along. Not necessarily in the capacity I'm at now, more so as a collector. And that's when I realized commercial debt exists, which was kind of silly not to think otherwise or to think otherwise because, I don't know how many hundreds of billions of dollars was conducted in interstate commerce last year, not to mention international. What I am pretty sure about, Richard, is not all of it was paid for.
Yeah, I think that's a safe bet. Just for people who are listening who may not be familiar with the industry, can you just very briefly indicate what the difference is between commercial collections and retail collections?
Yeah, with your commercial, or rather, let's go with retail first. You're dealing with consumers who owe some type of consumer debt, be it a credit card or a student loan or healthcare, or it's your personal debt. And of course, collection laws apply to that, which are very stringent and probably rightfully so. There were abuses back in the day, not anymore. But you're dealing with an individual that owes something for personal usage, as opposed to a business-to-business debt, where the businessman is supposed to know what the common man does not. And although collection laws don't yet necessarily apply to commercial debt, they're still treated the same. At least they are here. Businesses and people don't like to be in debt. It's not something that when they started a business, they said, okay, we're going to go into hundreds of thousands of debt and we'll see what happens. It just doesn't really work that way. So um, having the knowledge of both, I think, has enabled me to progress in this industry, knowing pretty much, what it takes to speak with people as opposed to at them. And unfortunately, both the consumer and commercial side do get a bad rap in the industry just because we're debt collectors.
Right. Now you mentioned when you made your move into commercial that it was with AMS or Allen Maxwell and Silver, and I wonder if you could take a couple of minutes just to trace for us the the history of AMS and what's happened with them over the last number of years since you've been involved with them.
I can, and I can even go back a little bit prior to that.
Sure.
Maxwell and Silver was founded by a lady by the name of Lisa. I don't know if it's appropriate to say her last name or not, but she was well known within the industry as well as the CLLA for years. She founded the company in 1992 and worked very hard to build it to where it is today. Somewhere around 2018, Lisa decided she was approaching retirement age and decided to sell the business to a company called Wyndham Professionals. Wyndham did have a small commercial department, mainly a consumer agency specializing in student loans, insurance, and healthcare. And they wanted to enter the commercial world. And the easiest way to do that is not work for 10 or 15 years to build your client base. It's to buy an agency, which we're seeing more and more of these days anyway. Then the pandemic hit, and that, of course, hit Wyndham pretty hard because all collections on consumer stuff kind of ceased. A hold was put on that, and understandably so. And then some 3 years ago, a little bit more, Radius Global Solutions decided to purchase Wyndham Professionals and, of course, AMS, since we were under their umbrella, in giving Radius the perfect combination of consumer debt and commercial business debt. And it's a well-rounded company for that purpose.
Good. With you speaking about those various mergers that took place with AMS, and you sort of alluded to this, but can you just talk about the trend of mergers in collection agencies generally over the last number of years?
I can. We've seen quite a number of that over the last few years, and I don't know if it's necessarily a good, bad thing or indifferent, but it does seem like the agencies that have been owned by that 1, 2, 3 person family kind of thing have decided to get out of the industry and seem to be selling to much larger corporations and businesses, kind of like Radius. And that's not a negative. Their Radius employs some 4,000 or 5,000 people internationally. And we've seen that with various agencies throughout the country. So there has been a consolidation, less agencies, there has been, at least on the attorney side as well. While I don't find this surprising, I do find it to be something to keep an eye on because it does affect our industry and the amount of choices creditors have out there to place business, making it all the more important reason to maintain the client base that we have, and many of which have been with us for 30 years.
At the same time as these mergers are going on, are there new commercial agencies coming online? Do you see that happening?
I haven't seen much of that. There are, I would say, a small handful.
Yeah.
And mainly because they've taken over the business. Maybe it was just a little bit commercial, but that person's retired and now somebody who's worked there has taken that business over and has decided to try and expand it, which is admirable. Right. And they will. Again, maintaining your client base and trying to increase it as well. So I don't see as many as we once did years ago.
Yeah.
But I think the interest is always there for some businesses to get into this particular industry because of the need for it.
Yeah. That's it. I mean, I suppose if large companies are looking to consolidate, it's because they see opportunity there, and if new business people saw the same opportunity, it's open to them to try and get into it themselves. What about the way that the agencies are compensated? Again, we're setting up this podcast for a general audience, so I know you and I know how they're compensated, but can you talk a little bit about contingent collections and how that works?
Sure. When it comes to, we'll discuss clients first and then employees to some extent. Basically, clients place their business with us in the hopes that we can recover their funds. If there is no collection, there's no fee. So we accept claims from creditors to protect their rights on a contingency basis. So if it's collected, then we get a percentage of what is collected and remit the difference to our clients. Clients feel, well, that's great. They have nothing to lose except a small percentage. And we have seen clients time and time again write off more to bad debt than they can ever possibly lose in fee to an agency. And it frees up their time to keep their 30 days from going to 60, 60 to 90, so on and so forth. Many clients are wearing multiple hats these days, too. They're not just the collection manager, but they're the credit manager, if there is one. So it frees up their time to bring in new business. And after a brief period of time, it enables them to place those past due accounts with us. And we encourage them, the sooner the better, because statistically, the older an account gets, the harder it is to collect. So clients love that. And that's generally true of the entire industry. No collection, no fee. There is outsourcing that exists where sometimes a fee is provided no matter what is collected or not. And we're actually calling on behalf of that particular client as if we are them, saying, hey, your invoice is approaching 30 days. If you could remit the funds, that'd be great. Very customer service orientated. So instead of outsourcing those jobs overseas, it's outsourced here in the U.S. Same principle.
And are those contingent as well, or no?
Generally not. It depends on the client. They can be. Some prefer just to pay, let's say, an hourly rate, and certain collectors are then put on that project.
I see.
So that's another option that has expanded within our industry that clients are finding very useful for themselves. As far as the collectors or an employee is concerned, yes, they're paid a salary. Of course, you need to be. You have to pay bills.
Yeah.
And depending on the type of business that the particular collector is receiving every month determines the amount of total dollars and in fee that they need to collect in order to receive a bonus. I for one, am never apologetic for saying, yes, it's a commission-based business as well. It also provides incentives for collectors to bring in the revenue. And revenue keeps us in business, which keeps our clients around, and it makes everybody generally happy. So it's a combination between salary and an incentive for hitting a certain number where you can receive bonuses on everything above and beyond whatever that goal is for that month.
So, given that the services your company provides are significantly done by way of contingency, why would a creditor company that's owed money, why would it write off an account without at least placing it for collections?
We have clients who do both. I've been asking that question for a lot of years, and it depends who you ask will determine the answer that you get. We have some clients who write it off and then send it to us because that's how they do their books.
Okay.
So therefore, anything we collect, as far as they're concerned, is found money.
Yes.
But yet we have others who will hang on to it and not write it off for 2-3 years. And as you know, once it goes into a lawsuit, it could take a lot longer than that to get
absolutely
to get to a finish line.
And if they're waiting that long, they're also getting close to limitation periods depending on the jurisdiction, right?
Absolutely. So even though it's in suit, they may still be on their books, and they call it in reserve. And not doing accounting, really, it's a difficult thing for me to describe. But some clients want things in reserve. And then all of a sudden at the end of a year, I'm getting inundated with emails. What's going on with this one? What's going on with that account? Because they're looking for those year-end write-offs.
Right.
But it's really dependent on the client and how they do their books. Frankly, I think they should write it off, send it to us, and then whatever we get, it's found money. But some clients just don't operate that way. I suppose it depends on their individual preference and whoever does their accounting, but it's really one option or the other.
Right. But one of the things I've always found particularly mysterious, I know I've spoken to you about this before, is when you get something placed with you, you get an offer back and they decline and say they're closing the file. And you think, well, surely getting something, whatever it is better than getting nothing. I've never really understood the thinking behind that.
Yeah, we've had the same thing happen with clients who I presented with suit requirements. Now let's close it. Well, isn't the nominal risk of the cost out-of-pocket expenses worth the possible reward? And that's kind of what I try and tell clients. at the same time. Let's say, for example, it's a $10,000 account. The debtor may be going out of business. He's offering 20 cents on the dollar. Why wouldn't you take the 20 grand or the 2 grand, I'm sorry, and the 20% and be done with it? Write off the $8,000 difference.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, these days, we're finding that many of our day-to-day contacts, our clients, are not necessarily decision makers.
Right.
They used to be, not so much anymore. So they have to go to people for answers, for permission. In some cases, yes, they're decision makers, but
Right.
I'm finding the vast majority now are not. And yeah, I'll press a client a little bit on that. Why wouldn't you take it? And some will change their mind and some will not. Generally, I will keep an eye on that account, though, too, and see whether or not it has been paid direct to the client. I'm not saying there's anything underhanded going on there, but sometimes it happens. The debtor will just send the payment to the client with, let's say, a restricted endorsement in the check, and the client deposited it in a lockbox, and then, yeah, it's considered settled. And we would be entitled to a fee on that.
Absolutely. And I think it's safe to say that, most people within this industry act in an honorable and good intentions way. And
yes.
When I frequently hear from clients who have had a direct payment and, they're not looking to try and avoid that. But I'm sure like in any kind of industry, there's always some people who don't comply with that kind of thing. You mentioned
everywhere, Richard, right?
Yeah, exactly. You mentioned in passing about suit fees. So I think maybe that's a good time to speak about claims that end up going legal and that you need to refer. So how does that work? How does that happen?
Yeah, excellent question. When I took this department over 17 years ago, at the time it had around 350, 375 accounts in it. And I was told that was the most accounts this department ever had. And the year before was also the most income or fee that this department ever did. So after a couple of months, I started analyzing the department and saying, well, this isn't really profitable. It's more of a favor to clients. So I started reaching out to clients to say to them, hey, did you know we could do this? This being, place that account with an attorney local to the debtor for further efforts. And the most common question I received from clients was, well, how much does it cost? And my answer is nothing. That's the beauty of it. Now, yes, our contingency fee rises to your predetermined legal rate simply because attorneys become involved also on a contingency basis, and no suit is being filed at this point. It's an attorney somewhere near the debtor, certainly in their same state or in your case, province, of course, and trying to get the debtor's attention in the hopes that now that it's in their backyard, the debtor will pay attention to the situation and their obligation to the creditor.
Right.
And in some cases that happens, and in other cases it does not. So clients started little by little saying, okay, nothing to lose. Let's place it. Now, once you have that account as the receiving attorney and you make your efforts and demands, etc., then you get back to me, preferably around 30 days, sometimes sooner, sometimes later, with a report. Debtor never responded, debtor said this, whatever the case may be, and that report includes requirements to sue. Generally the cost, because you probably have the required documents. Now I go back to the client and say, here's the situation. Voluntary payment is not happening. So at this point, here's what we need to do. You can sue it. I invoice you for the cost, or you could close it. Nothing gained, nothing lost. And I told clients time and time again, you can hire an attorney by the hour and get the same outcome, which may be no money. At the same time, this is the least expensive way to legally protect your rights as a creditor, because it's nominal out-of-pocket expenses.
Right.
Really just the cost to sue, etc. Your filing fees, your process server fees, etc. And then, Richard, I used to get the follow-up question, well, will I spend more money? I don't know. Very hard to say. The hope is no. The hope is once served, the debtor will not pay attention, maybe get their attorney involved and resolve it. But at the same time, you're not spending $400, $500, $600 an hour at 10-hour retainers at a time.
Right. Right.
And some clients see the value in that. Others, not so much.
Yeah. Yeah. But you're just providing them with an option, an opportunity on what they can do with an account that they're likely otherwise just writing off anyway, right?
Correct. When we have exhausted our usual collection efforts is when we offer our clients the option of allowing me to place it for further efforts. And in some cases, I know clients they want their rights protected, they will sue it. So although I'll place it with a receiving attorney for efforts, once I know what suit requirements are, I simply invoice the client for it because I know they're going to sue it. And that's one of the advantages of managing a department for the time that I have, because you get to know your clients on a client by client basis, as well as on a case by case basis.
Right.
You know,
Exactly.
you know which ones do proceed, you know which ones don't want to, and that also enables me to free up some of your time as well, because frankly, I don't want to waste our attorney's time just by clicking an account to see what happens. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that never happens, but it's my time as well. So I always have to take all of those things into consideration when deciding to place an account, who the client is, where the debtor is, what kind of situation are they in? Do I see judgments and liens? And this is probably not going to be collected as well. So there's factors that come into play in determining whether or not to even place the account and or sue it, for that matter.
Right. Okay, perfect. I think at this point, I'm going to turn our discussion over to the CLLA, the Commercial Law League of America. And I thought I'd start off by asking, how did you first get involved with CLLA? I assume that was when you joined AMS, was it?
It was. I always knew of the CLLA, but very little about it or of it. And my first day on the job, in fact, my boss, Jim McConville, had said to me, in the fall, we're going to send you to a meeting, a conference in New York, the CLLA conference, and you'll get to meet some of the attorneys that we're doing business with now and that are in our computer, and then you'll meet new ones and talk to them and, decide who you want to use in the future, because who you place accounts with is up to you. Great. Well, I went to my first CLLA meeting that November and 2007, and I couldn't believe the amount of people that were there. I said, wow, he set a meeting. I didn't realize it was going to be so well attended. And while the quantity of members attending the national or even regional conferences certainly have lowered through the years, the quality of the people have not. So I got to know people. I didn't even have to approach anybody. It was a very friendly atmosphere, and those introducing themselves and saying, here's who I am. And, oh, yeah, I could put the email address with the face now. And this went on for a few years. And then eventually somebody in the league had said to me, I think you'd be an asset to join the Creditors' Rights Executive Council. I said, okay. So I got involved in the Creditors' Rights section and eventually became chair of the Eastern region, and eventually became chair of the Creditors' Rights section, or the Creditors' Rights Executive Council. And the more I got involved, the more I found it to be helpful, not just for me personally, but from a business perspective too, because relationships develop. You get to know people. They get to know you. And that can only assist in both the short and long term. And then eventually I got involved in the agency section. And as Creditors' Rights Executive Council chair, that matriculated to a seat on the Board of Governors, which I served for a year or two, and now still serve on the board, as you are aware, as the agency section representative. And it's been very enlightening and very helpful for me. This department simply wouldn't have developed to the extent it has, be it 17 years ago or even still developing today, without the assistance of the professionals that are in this organization.
That's great. That's great. Um, you're famous in the league for your series of lectures on good forwarders go bad. And I know whenever we go to a conference and there's one of those on, it's always very strongly attended and has very vibrant discussions and contributions from everybody who's there. Why do you think those sessions are so popular, aside, of course, from your own personal charm?
No, I don't know about the charm part, but thank you. I think they're popular because everybody can relate to them. You know, I don't know if there is a right or wrong and always and a never in our industry, but there certainly is a better or worse. And there are attorneys out there, firms, whose communication is outstanding. And then there are some where I can say it's virtually non-existent. We have clients to answer to. Unlike, let's say, a credit card client for a consumer, where that credit card places a batch of 5,000 accounts. And 30 days later, all that credit card company wants to know is, what percentage am I getting back on that batch of work? Whereas in the commercial world, it's completely opposite. We have a client who may place 5, 10, 15, 20 a month. I don't know, maybe more, maybe less. But that one they place, they keep an eye on. And they want to know what's going on at all times. Now, while they have access to our notes in our system by logging onto our portal and putting in their password, etc., many of them want to be kept up to date every step along the way. So when I say better or worse, yes, there is good forwarding that can go bad. There's good forwarding that can get better. It's a relationship between both our client, the creditor, the agency, and of course the receiving attorney who is doing the work on behalf of both our client and ourselves. And I think because there have been some consolidation with the attorneys, some new attorneys that have joined, and some newer agencies, I think the subject is a little more popular nowadays than ever before because it's a feeling out. It's a growing period for them. When I first took this department over, I can look back and say, I've made every mistake you can make in this department. Simply because I didn't know what I didn't know yet.
Right.
And while I was familiar with the legal process, what I was unfamiliar with were the variables in all 50 states, because there's a lot of them. People want to perform well. They want to do a good job. They want to maintain that business relationship with us just as we do with our clients. And because of that, there is always something to learn. I don't think a day goes by where I still don't learn something in running this department. And I think another reason it's so popular is because it's interactive. When we do seminars on good forwarding gets better or gone bad or whatever the case may be, in this case, in this year, best practices, it's interactive. People want to put their input in. They ask questions. They say, here's what I do in that situation.
Oh, absolutely. Yep.
Which we welcome because they may very well have thought of something I never have.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's very lively.
And it helps
engaged.
everybody.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, we're just about at the end of this. My final kind of points I was hoping to get from you is, what do you hope to do personally next in the league? And where do you see the league going? What would you like to see the league become?
From a personal perspective, I will, of course, continue to run the agency executive council and serve on the board for a couple of more years. I'd like to expand that agency section council and the agency section itself, not necessarily with more agencies. Of course, that would be great. Not necessarily in membership with the agencies, but more along the lines of getting them involved.
Right.
So what I intend to do starting in another month or two is to invite all of the agencies that are members to one of our webinars.
Yes.
To one of our agency section executive councils to say, here's what we've been working on. Here's what we're thinking of. What ideas do you have? Especially when it comes to education. And to make them feel more value from being a league member. Not that they don't now, but when you invite people in and accept and welcome their feedback and their input, I think they generally not just appreciate that, but they feel like they're getting more value from the organization. So that's where I intend to go as far as that is concerned. As far as the league itself, well, we have seen it shrink from the membership it was some 10, 15, 20 years ago to where it is now. And I'd certainly like to see it expand. And although I don't know if there is a ceiling for membership. I don't know if there's a floor for membership, but I think the quality of individuals has never been better. And I'd like to see it continue along those lines, which can only make the organization that much stronger, better, and prestigious.
Excellent. Well, I think that's a great way to wrap this up. And as I said to you before we started this, my hope was that this could be a conversation like you and I have had many times at various league conferences and Zoom calls and things like that. And I feel that this was came across that way. So I thank you very much for taking the time to join me today.
Conversations I always enjoy with you as well, Richard.
Well, it's mutual. So anyway, so thanks very much. And that concludes today's podcast. So have a great day.
All right. Thank you. You as well. Thank you for having me.
Righto. Bye-bye.